Give it up for my good friend, Scott Connerly!
Alrighty, cool. So there's slides somewhere. Who here has been involved in an estimation process? Who liked it? 2 dudes. Oh, thank you. All right. How many of those involved using multipliers? Like, oh, well, it was this much, but then we're going to multiply it by 3. Right? It's guessing. Your guess is wrong. Your guess is terrible. Humans are terrible at predicting the future. That's just a fact. So how can we live with that fact? Because, you know, we are always supposed to be pointing tickets. Every scrum shop ever is like, hey, we need to point these tickets. How else can we know what can fit into a sprint? Because sprints are the most amazing thing in the world. We must make things fit into them because time boxing. So we need to know the team's point velocity because that's a thing, apparently. The first rule of Scrum is you do not define what a point is. The second rule of Scrum that you do not define what a point is. And then you make people commit to it. So what other alternatives do we have? Stakeholders need dates. Managers need staffing plans. So we got to figure something out. We got to throw them some sort of bone. Because the last time I tried to say it'll be done when it's done, they didn't like that so much. Go figure. There was an excellent presentation I saw at 2017's Lean Agile Kansas City, keynote by Troy Magennis, I hope I said that right, titled How Big, How Long, How Much? And in it he presented a concept called Monte Carlo forecasting, which I'd never heard of before. These slides are going to be available online, links available in the footers here, so you can go research this if you want to read about it, see his whole presentation. Monte Carlo forecasting, if you boil the entire keynote down into a quip, don't estimate all 100 tickets, estimate 10 random tickets, and then extrapolate. And it's usually right with margins of error. Okay, cool, so that's something. That said to me that you don't have to estimate every ticket. Well, why not just estimate none of the tickets? You don't have to estimate any tickets. That's great, let's do that. So how can you actually make that happen? Because we are, at my current company, which, yes, we'll be hiring soon, we are doing this where we don't do estimates and we still deliver projects on time. So how do you do that, Scott? I'm glad you asked. You break tickets down so small, so very small, generic even, you might say. Extreme Programming XP would say everything should be a 1-point ticket. That's interesting, but a little dogmatic, so don't do that. So instead, I've been saying everything should be as small as is reasonably possible. Like, could this function on its own? If adding one button is the smallest thing you can do, add that button. And then the next ticket, you make that button work. Each of those is their own pull request. Each of those is their own ticket. It's as small as is reasonably possible. And yes, it gets really detailed. That's okay. In fact, it's excellent. When you get that detail, you write those details down in the ticket, which is great. Those tickets then become uniform size on average. They are very generic. And generic things can be counted. You don't have to point them, you just count them, and that's easy. That's the thing you actually want to do with a spreadsheet, not put points into a spreadsheet. That's a bad idea. Don't let anyone ever put points into a spreadsheet. So, how do you turn this count of points into something reasonable? Yes, like I said, spreadsheets. You track these tiny tickets. You track on average, emphasis on average, this team of 4 people with these tickets can do 20 tickets per week. 1 ticket per developer per day, on average. Not every week's gonna be that. Some weeks are gonna be better, some weeks are gonna be worse. So get this average, and you have to build up a body of data. Sure, that's fine. That takes a little time. I'd say after a couple of weeks, you start to get a feel, and after a couple of months, you start to get really solid in that feeling, and after 6 months, you can be like, wow, this is our average rate of this team breaking down these tickets. Because everyone's going to break them down smaller, different developers have different constraints, but it's as small as is reasonably possible. So what happens next? People blaze through small tickets. The QA team blazes through validation. Devs are pleased, QA is pleased, everyone's pleased. It's excellent. Generic things can just be counted. So what's next? One of the beautiful things is also after you break them down into all these small pieces, they're externally validatable. Once you have this ticket, someone else can say, yes, that would work, and that is all of it. These are all of the details needed to implement this feature or this portion of this epic, right? Portion of this epic because of whatever. And with estimates, you can't really do that because you're like, that one's 3 points. That one's 7 points. And someone can say, why? You're like, it feels like it. No. You have an internal audit trail built into these really small tickets to get all the detail. So you figure out your average. You project the dates based on that average. Those dates are usually right. They just magically are. It's so easy. You guys don't know it's so easy. Stakeholders are pleased because their stuff shows up when you told them it would, not like the time when you tried to estimate and point it. So historically, this topic has been called no estimates, hashtag no estimates. Don't tweet about that because you'll attract the trolls and you get a holy war on your ground. So instead, it's really confrontational. So I'm trying to transition this discussion to focusing on the problem. The problem is that estimates are bullshit. Estimates are BS, hashtag estimates are BS. Everyone tag that. Amazingly, that actually happened at exactly 6 minutes. I did not estimate that properly.